I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it.
This is one of the most difficult weeks for the family of London Thomas, the 17-year-old known for her big personality and passion for all things hair.
She's this big, but she ate this big. She didn't receive a call saying, hey, come get me, and that her phone was pinging some weird place in some park. And then I also went to Detroit because we live in Detroit.
Her family tells me they've searched high and low for the teen. They say she did have a boyfriend, but still, no leads have led them to finding London.
Nobody has accused anybody of anything, not our family. Yeah. We just want her home. If anybody's pointing fingers, there's people online, it's not our family.
Every 37 minutes in America, someone is murdered. While you watch this video, 2 more lives will be stolen. But in those statistics, there's a category that haunts investigators more than any other: victims who walk willingly toward their killers. London Thomas was 17 years old when she stepped out of her sister's car at 4 a.m. on April 5, 2025, wearing pink Crocs and black leggings. She was going to see her ex-boyfriend. 21 days later, investigators would discover her body sealed in a plastic bin, and the person who helped put her there would turn out to be someone who should have protected her. This isn't just a story about a teenage girl who trusted the wrong person. This is about what happens when a mother chooses her son over justice, when a legal technicality becomes a 6-month roadblock, and when a family's worst nightmare gets buried in bureaucratic failure. I'm about to show you exactly how a 17-year-old girl disappeared in broad daylight, and why it took 200 days to charge the 2 people who were in that house the whole time. If this already has you questioning how we protect our most vulnerable, hit subscribe, because what investigators found in that plastic bin wasn't just evidence of murder. It was proof that someone spent 3 weeks constructing an elaborate lie while a family searched parks and posted flyers, never knowing their daughter was less than 7 miles away, suffocating in darkness. London Thomas wasn't just a statistic waiting to happen. She was a 17-year-old with red and blonde hair who had a butterfly tattoo on her neck, the kind of detail that makes missing persons posters unforgettable. She lived on Albert Street in Detroit with her mother, Jasmine Bennett, and her stepfather, Donnell Johnson. She would have turned 18 in just a few weeks. Here's what matters about London. She had a green hoodie that said 1 to 800 mental health matters. Think about that for a second. A teenager who wore mental health awareness on her chest. Someone who understood that help exists, that darkness can be fought. Someone who believed in reaching out. Her stepfather would later get a tattoo in her honor. He told reporters, "It's hard not to sit in a house and not think of her at the table or couch without getting emotional because that was our baby girl." Notice he said baby girl, present tense emotional attachment, past tense reality. That's a grammatical tragedy of grief. London was described as 5 feet 6 inches tall, about 115 pounds, with brown eyes and red hair typically worn in a ponytail. But those are just measurements. Here's what made her London. She had relationships that mattered. A mother who would spend weeks searching parks. A father, Cedric Salisbury, who organized community search parties. A grandmother, Justina Martin, who filled her house with London's pictures and couldn't stop talking about how London always called to say, "Grandma, I love you."
Miss her so much. I miss talking to my grandbaby because she always called me and say, "Grandma, I love you."
And she had a boyfriend, 23-year-old Jalen Pendergrass of Inkster, Michigan, a man 6 years older who lived with his mother, Charla Pendergrass, in a house on Carlisle Street. According to prosecutors, by the time London arrived at that house in the early morning hours of April 5th, their relationship had allegedly ended. But she went anyway. Why does a 17-year-old girl go to her ex-boyfriend's house at 4 a.m.? Maybe to get closure. Maybe to get her things. Maybe because he asked, and she still cared. We'll never know, because London never got the chance to tell her side. What we do know is this: London wore pink Crocs that morning. Comfortable shoes. The kind you wear when you think you're just making a quick stop, when you think you'll be home soon, when you think you're safe. She would never wear them again. On April 5th, 2025, at around 4 a.m., the moment later known as a drop-off, London's sister dropped her off at the Pendergrass home on Carlisle Street in Inkster, and it was still dark, the kind of hour when the world feels like it's holding its breath between night and morning. London got out of the car and walked toward their house in her pink Crocs as the door closed behind her, and that was the last time anyone who loved her saw her alive. Later that same day, April 5th, 2025, what will be called the first report, London's sister went straight to the Inkster Police Department to report her missing, not the next day and not after waiting 48 hours like TV shows tell you to do, but that very day, because her sister knew. Family always knows when something is wrong. And then, by April 6, 2025, at around 10 a.m., the time investigators would later mark as the phone goes dark, London's phone pinged in Westland, not at the Pendergrass house and not in Inkster, but in Westland, a neighboring suburb, when her mother, Jasmine Bennett, didn't hear from London by 10 a.m. the next morning. She filed a second missing persons report with the Detroit Police Department. Let that sink in. 2 police departments, 2 reports, and 2 family members so certain something was catastrophically wrong that they couldn't wait for bureaucratic, jurisdictional nonsense. And while all this was happening, what were Jalen and Charla Pendergrass doing during those critical hours? They were moving a body. By April 7th, 2025, just 48 hours after London disappeared, the day that would later be referred to as a phone call, Charla Pendergrass called a male friend and asked him to transport a sealed plastic bin with unknown contents, according to what prosecutors would later reveal. It wasn't help me move some boxes or can you take something to storage, but specifically a sealed plastic bin with unknown contents. Think about the psychology of that phrasing. Charla didn't say, don't look inside. She said unknown. Plausible deniability was built right into the request. If you don't know what's in it, you can't be blamed for transporting it. Right? Wrong. But it shows calculation. It shows someone who understood they were committing a crime and was trying to spread the liability. Then came April 11th, 2025, 6 days after London was last seen, the moment known as a storage. Charla's friend placed that seal bin inside an SUV on Millard Street in Southfield, not at a storage facility, not at a dump, but in an SUV parked on a residential street in a Detroit suburb. Inside that bin, London Thomas was decomposing. She was less than 7 miles from her mother's house, 7 miles from the parks where volunteers would soon spend hours searching, 7 miles from the elementary school where her phone had pinged and her father organized search parties. For 15 days, she remained there, sealed and hidden, while her family posted flyers and begged the community for help. By April 18th, 2025, day 13, remembered as a raid, the FBI, Detroit Police, and Inkster Police conducted a search of the Pendergrass home on Carlisle Street. London's mother, Jasmine Bennett, would later say that nothing was found during that search because, by then, the evidence was 7 miles away, parked on Millard Street, waiting to be discovered. During this time, investigators interviewed Charla Pendergrass, who allegedly told them she saw London leave the house, a claim that would later be contradicted by phone records and video evidence. She was actively constructing a narrative. London was here. London left. We don't know where she went. Classic misdirection. And finally, on April 26, 2025, day 21, forever marked as a conscience call, Inkster Police received information from a male friend of Charla Pendergrass, the same friend she'd asked to move a bin. We don't know what broke him, guilt, fear, or the realization that helping move unknown contents had made him an accessory to murder. But 21 days after London disappeared, he made a phone call that would crack the case open. He told investigators about the bin. He told them where he'd left it, and he gave them the address on Millard Street. Michigan State Police, the FBI, and Detroit Police responded to that address and discovered London's lifeless body inside the plastic bin, still in the SUV. The Oakland County Medical Examiner determined that London died from asphyxia, and her death was ruled a homicide. Asphyxia. She couldn't breathe. Whether from strangulation, smothering, or being sealed in that bin before she was fully gone, we don't know yet. But imagine the terror of those final moments. Imagine fighting for air. Imagine knowing the person hurting you was someone you once trusted. When investigators told London's stepfather they found her body, he said, "When they told us they found her body, I couldn't breathe. I was like, this can't be real. Like, no, my baby's coming home. She's alive. This is not real." He couldn't breathe, just like London couldn't breathe. Grief and trauma echoing the very method of murder. Here's where this case stops being about one family's tragedy and becomes about systemic failure, because once investigators found London's body, you'd think the arrest would follow quickly, right? 2 suspects, 1 house, and a mountain of evidence, but it took 6 months. By May 2nd, 2025, just 6 days after finding the body, came what will be remembered as a wrong charge. Charla Pendergrass was arrested and charged with lying to a peace officer during a violent crime investigation. Not murder, not accessory after the fact, lying to police. Prosecutors said she engaged in an extended campaign to lie to police when questioned about London's disappearance, and they had phone records and video evidence proving she'd lied about seeing London leave the house. Yet the bond was set at just $50,000 with a GPS tether, and for someone who helped dispose of a teenage girl's body, that's barely a speed bump. Meanwhile, Jalen Pendergrass was considered a person of interest, but he wasn't arrested or charged, not even for lying, not even for being the last person to see London alive. Nothing. Then, by August 2025, 3 months later, came the technicality. The charge of lying to a peace officer against Charla was dismissed, and why? Because the person she'd allegedly lied to was an FBI agent, and under Michigan law, FBI agents aren't considered peace officers. Read that again. A mother helps her son dispose of his girlfriend's body, lies to investigators repeatedly. Prosecutors charge her, and then the case gets thrown out on a technicality because Michigan's legal definition of peace officer was written before federal agencies became deeply involved in local homicide investigations. And so, Charla Pendergrass walked free. The GPS tether came off, and London's family had to watch the woman they knew was involved in their daughter's death go home, while they visited a cemetery. Just 2 days later, on May 4th, 2025, what could only be described as the unrelated arrest, London's boyfriend, Jalen Pendergrass, was charged with filing a false police report in Oakland County, a completely unrelated case. While out on bond for that case, he was allegedly arrested for driving under the influence, though formal charges weren't filed. So let's review. The man who was the last person to see London alive got arrested for lying about something else entirely in drunk driving, but not for the murder of his 17-year-old girlfriend whose body was found in a bin his mother asked someone to move. And this is what happens when jurisdictional boundaries and legal technicalities matter more than justice. The word conspiracy gets thrown around a lot in true crime, but in this case, it's not hyperbole, it's a literal definition. Both Jalen and Charla Pendergrass were charged on October 16, 2025, 6 months after London's body was found, with second-degree murder and tampering with evidence. Wayne County Assistant Prosecuting Attorney Dominic DeGrazia stated, "This is a case where the evidence, I believe, will be abundant that both defendants, but in particular Ms. Charla Pendergrass, engaged in an extended campaign to lie to the police, lie to law enforcement to cover up her actions. Cover up her actions. Not her son's actions, her actions. Because here's what the evidence suggests. Charla wasn't just an accessory after the fact. She was an active participant. And when you think about the timeline, it becomes impossible to ignore. On April 5th at 4 a.m., London arrives at the house. Later that same day, she's reported missing. By April 7th, Charla is asking a friend to move a sealed bin. Then on April 11th, that bin is placed in an SUV in Southfield. On April 18th, the FBI raids the house, and Charla lies about seeing London leave. Finally, on April 26th, London's body is discovered after Charla's friend calls police. That's a 21-day conspiracy, 3 weeks of lies, 3 weeks of misdirection, and 3 weeks of watching London's mother on the news begging for information while Charla knew exactly where her daughter was. And then came the family's reaction. London's father, Cedric Salisbury, told reporters after the charges were filed, "It's been an emotional roller coaster, heartbreaking. We all knew they did something. We all knew. That's the devastating part. The family knew, the community knew. But knowledge isn't proof, and suspicion isn't evidence. And in America, you need both to charge someone with murder." London's grandmother, Justina Martin, looked at the defendants and said, "You can look at them and see something's wrong with them, mainly Jalen." And here's what cuts deepest. Her stepfather, Donnell Johnson, told the media, "I hope it was worth it in your eyes, because your life is over with. Harming a child, taking their life, that's beyond being a parent. That's just straight evil. Beyond being a parent, because that's the real horror of this case. Charla Pendergrass wasn't just protecting her son from consequences. She allegedly helped him commit murder and then spent weeks covering it up. That's not maternal instinct. That's choosing to destroy one family to save another. That's deciding that London's mother's grief was acceptable collateral damage. And then came the arraignment. On October 17, 2025, both defendants were arraigned. Jalen Pendergrass was denied bond, while Charla Pendergrass was given a $5 million cash bond, a dramatic increase from the $50,000 bond she'd received on the line charge. Both entered not guilty pleas, and their probable cause hearing is scheduled for October 22nd, where prosecutors will lay out their full case. Each faces charges that carry up to life in prison. This isn't just about two people making horrific choices. It's about how a system designed to protect victims failed at every single turn. The first breakdown was failure number 1, jurisdictional confusion. London was dropped off in Inkster. Her phone pinged in Westland. She lived in Detroit, and her body was found in Southfield. 4 cities, multiple police departments, an initial confusion about who should lead the investigation. London's father, Cedric Salisbury, told reporters, "Inkster police haven't been reaching out to us. It's a community effort at this point." And when jurisdictional boundaries become barriers instead of guidelines, investigations stall. Hours turn into days, days turn into weeks, and evidence literally decomposes. Then came failure number 2, the peace officer technicality. Michigan's legal definition of peace officer doesn't include FBI agents, and in an era where federal and local agencies work together on almost every major case, that's not just outdated, it's dangerous. It meant that when Charla lied to investigators, the charges couldn't stick simply because she happened to be talking to the wrong badge. That's not justice. That's bureaucratic absurdity masquerading as law. Next was failure number 3, the 6-month gap. London's body was found on April 26, yet murder charges weren't filed until October 16th. That's 173 days, nearly 6 months. Cedric Salisbury said after the charges, "Hopefully they did a thorough investigation. Maybe that's why it took so long. We can move forward and wrap this up so my daughter can rest in peace." He's trying to find meaning in the delay, trying to believe the wait was worth it because it meant a stronger case. But here's the reality. Wayne County Prosecutor Kim Worthy stated, "It has taken countless hours of investigation and diligent work by the Michigan State Police, the Detroit Police Department, and the FBI. Countless hours, multiple agencies. 6 months. For a case where the body was found in a bin that a witness said he was asked to move by one of the defendants. The evidence was there. The witnesses were there. So what took so long?" And finally came failure number 4, age gap relationships and warning signs. Jalen was 23 and London was 17. That 6-year age gap, particularly when one person is still a minor, creates a power dynamic that's worth examining. We don't know the details of their relationship. We don't know if there were warning signs her family missed or if Jalen was skilled at hiding his true nature. But here's what we do know. When London first went missing, her family told reporters, "Nobody has accused anybody of anything. Not our family. We just want her home. If anybody's pointing fingers, it's people online. It's not our family."
London.
Nobody has accused anybody of anything. Not our family. We just want her home. If anybody's pointing fingers, it's people online. It's not our family.
They were protecting Jalen, giving him the benefit of the doubt, because they wanted London alive more than they wanted someone to blame. And maybe he exploited that grace. Maybe that's exactly what he was counting on. Every 37 minutes, someone is murdered in America. That statistic includes London Thomas now. 17 years old, red and blonde hair, butterfly tattoo, pink Crocs. But she wasn't a statistic. She was a granddaughter who called to say, "I love you." She was a daughter who would have turned 18 weeks after she disappeared. She was a girl who wore a hoodie that said 1 to 800 mental health matters, who understood that reaching out for help is strength, not weakness. And she was a victim of the worst kind of betrayal, the kind that comes from someone you trust, enabled by someone who should have stopped it. If someone you love is involved with someone significantly older, pay attention. Not all age gaps are predatory, but they create power dynamics that can be exploited. Look for warning signs, isolation from family, changes in behavior, fear of upsetting their partner. London's sister and mother didn't wait 48 hours. They reported her missing the same day and the next. That instinct was right. If someone you love goes missing, especially someone vulnerable like a teenager, report it immediately. Make police take you seriously by documenting exact times, last known locations, and any concerning circumstances. The fact that Charla's initial charges were dismissed because she lied to an FBI agent instead of a peace officer is absurd. If you're involved in advocacy or law reform, push for statutes that reflect modern law enforcement collaboration. A lie to an investigator is a lie to an investigator. The badge shouldn't matter. London's family has been fighting for justice for 200 days. Their father said he hopes they did a thorough investigation. Maybe that's why they took so long, and we can move forward so my daughter can rest in peace. Share this story, not for views, not for algorithm engagement, but because somewhere, right now, there's another teenager in a relationship with someone who is a mother willing to cover up crimes. There's another family missing someone and getting stonewalled by jurisdictional nonsense. There's another case where justice is delayed because of legal technicalities written decades ago. London Thomas deserved better. She deserved to turn 18. She deserved to graduate, to dream, to wear her mental health awareness hoodie and help other people who were struggling. She deserved to call her grandmother and say, "I love you for decades to come." She deserved to take off those pink Crocs at the end of the day and go home safe. Instead, she became a lesson in how trust can kill, how family loyalty can become criminal conspiracy, and how systems designed to protect us can fail so catastrophically that a teenager's body sits undiscovered for weeks while volunteers search parks 7 miles away. In remembering London Thomas, we refuse to let injustice hide in shadows. We demand better from our laws, our police departments, and ourselves. We honor her not just by remembering how she died, but by fighting so that no other family has to wait 200 days for the word justice to mean something. London, your story won't be forgotten. Your grandmother still has your pictures on every wall. Your stepfather carries your memory in ink on his skin. Your mother is still waiting for you to come home, even though she knows you can't. You mattered. You matter. You will always matter. Rest in power, London. The world failed you, but we won't forget you.